Hi everyone, before we get started, just wanted to let you know towards the middle of the episode, my voice starts to get a bit low. Sorry about that. I didn't realize the connection to my mic needed a new battery, but you should still be able to hear me fine. It's just not the clarity that you might be used to. Okay, let's get started. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Studio 78 podcast. I am your host, Nache from NacheSnow.com. Welcome. I actually have LaKaye Mbah on from LaKaye Mbah Photography. Welcome, LaKaye.
Hey, Nache.
Hello. Normally, it's funny, I do my my intros separately, but I'm like, it's LaKaye. I know LaKaye. She can suffer through my intro.
It's a pleasure.
So, no, guys, this is episode 116. So, for the show notes for this page, it'll be over at nachesnow.com/116. Also, if you love this episode, please go over to Apple Podcasts and rate me 5 stars. If you're on YouTube, please give me a thumbs up. And wherever else you might be listening, please subscribe. And then you guys know what I always say. Sharing is caring, my friends. Share away if you think this episode can help someone. Okay, so why am I on today just chit-chatting with LaKaye? Because this is not like a normal interview. It's because this is a very special week. It is election week. So I just decided to do a pause from my regular interviews and just have a conversation that is completely unrelated to politics. We're going to be talking about personal development today. But I do want to say just before we begin that I would love for you guys to go out and vote. I'm not going to get into specifics about who you should vote for. I will just say that your vote really counts. And when it comes to women rights, minority rights, LGBT rights, and getting us out of this pandemic, I think we all know who we should vote for. And I will leave it at that, my friends. Please go out and vote. I've already voted last Tuesday, and I know this is going to be a crazy emotional week, which is why we're discussing personal development, how to take care of yourself. So, in the midst of all the crazy that's going on, hopefully we can provide you with some distractions on how to take care of yourself and prepare yourself for success even during these very unusual times. So, anywho, let me just start chatting with LaKaye. Hello, LaKaye. Again.
I'm so excited. I love your podcast so much. So I'm just tickled that I get to be up here again.
If you have not heard LaKaye's episode already, check out, let's see, where were you? Episode 5. My goodness.
That is so amazing to say.
That's insane, right? You are episode 5. It was entitled Achieving Success as a Single Mom and Gaining Clarity on Future Goals. It's like just so appropriate to have you back, like right now, with all that's going on. This is like.
And you know what's so funny about that is that leads right directly into the personal development conversation, because that's literally what I've been doing since episode 5.
Yeah, because it was like January of 2017. That's insane.
Wow. Okay.
Welcome back. So you guys, when I say personal development, let me tell you what we're talking about. And I went to the Google machine for this definition just so we're all on the same page. Personal development is defined as activities that improve awareness and identity, develop talents and potential, build human capital, facilitate employability, and enhance the quality of life and the realization of dreams and aspirations. personal development can take place over the course of a person's entire life. Source Wikipedia. Gotta love Wikipedia.
Man, that was a mouthful.
It was, wasn't it?
Hmm. But it's so true. All of those things are. I mean, that was a really long definition, but personal development encompasses all of those things. So
We're going to get into some things in this episode, but I will say that I have, without the courses and the books and the education in general that I received, I don't think I would be where I am today, because it's
absolutely.
helped just make me a better thinker, more strategic thinker. It just has made me a more well-rounded person. So I feel like it is super key, and what people need to realize is it doesn't always require having a lot of money to do it either. It's just really making sure that you are taking the time to do it.
Right. Which
Yeah.
is the first point is on awareness. So just developing yourself and knowing that you just being aware that you need to continue doing that is already a step in the right direction.
Right. Let's begin. Can you just tell people, because I know even in the last couple of years, you have gone offline, if you will, to educate yourself and really go in a different direction a little bit than you were going before. Like it's like you decided to pick up a new skill. So can you just talk to the audience about what you've done in the last couple of years to just enhance your career and just you as a person in general?
Well, Shay, I just finished
Woo
my MFA program, Master of
woo!
Fine Arts. We could talk at another time about graduating during the coronavirus, but it's I went back to school because I was really working on my personal development. The time I went to school or before I enrolled, there was a lot of internal emotions that I needed to process. There were just a lot of heavy things going on. And I had been a photographer for, I don't know, maybe 10 years prior to that. And because of the life changes that I was experiencing at the time, I just couldn't focus on that anymore. And I just thought, I'm not going to be a photographer anymore. So I just kind of stopped doing anything photography. But my whole identity was kind of wrapped up in being a photographer for a long time, which is not a great thing to do because you are not what you do, you are who you are. But anyway, so when I stopped photography, I kind of looked around. I was like, what else is there? What do I want to do? Because that's what I've been doing for so long. So I looked internally and I was trying to think, what could I do? What have I always wanted to do? The that's the position that I was in at the time. You know, if I'm not a photographer, what is it that I could possibly want to do? So
Mm-hmm.
I've always been interested in art. Now, don't ask me to draw anything. I'm getting better, but I didn't I didn't grow up sketching. I didn't grow up painting or any of that, but I wanted to give it a shot. And that's just where I was at the moment. I don't know if I recommend that to everybody, but I felt a need to connect with something outside of photography. It was a really deep need.
Mm.
And so I went back to school. I enrolled at Norfolk State University and I went into an art program with the least amount of art knowledge that you could possibly get into that program. It was such an eye opener when I got in. And it was super hard because I was coming to it from not a fine art standpoint, but the things that I gained from being enrolled in that program, when you mention a definition, you're also talking about identity. And I was learning so much about my own identity. So, what I
Mm.
ended up doing when I first enrolled, because I didn't know what I wanted to do, and really, we should probably have another conversation at some point about grad school versus not grad school for artists. But
Mm.
I went in there and I decided I was going to try everything. So, I did stained glass, I did painting, I did a lot with fabric, which I ended up doing toward the end as well. But the biggest thing that I got out of that program was really identifying, was coming up with my own self identity, self awareness, because I tended to look outside of myself for other things, especially as a commercial photographer. When you're shooting weddings and portraits, you're looking to your clients to make them happy and to tell, and they tell you what they want.
Mm-hmm.
But in grad school, you literally have to come up with everything from the ground up, and uh, that was horrifying. I mean, imagine going to school all through elementary, high school, even college, and you're doing assignments, right? Your teacher is
Mm-hmm.
telling you, what to turn in, how to do it, how many words it has to be, what colors to use, whatever. But it's flipped completely upside down when you're in grad school. Everything has to come from within. You give yourself assignments. You tell yourself when the deadline is. And that was a major shakeup that I needed, and it helped me so much with coming up with my own identity and figuring out what was really important to me. Whew, that was a long answer. Did I answer that?
You did, but this is your second graduate degree, correct?
You don't have to tell the people that. Okay. Now the difference is, I'm glad you brought that up. I'm not glad, but yes, this is my second degree because I met Nache during my first degree.
I mean,
But Nache, for me, it
it's
was
a
a
difference.
major difference
Mm-hmm.
because even in University of Baltimore, we had assignments.
We did. That's what I was
We
gonna say. It sounds very different from when we were in school. Yeah.
Maybe the difference is this was a fine arts program as opposed to a I was originally, not originally, my first master's degree is in publications design.
Mm-hmm.
And my goal then was to go and work for a magazine. That's what I
Right.
wanted to do. I wanted to start a magazine. I wanted to have a magazine. I wanted to work for a magazine. And I had my whole path laid out in front of me. And that was in 2006 when we graduated. And I actually
Dang.
worked for a
Why you had to say
magazine.
the year though?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Why we gotta be old? Why you gotta let people know how old we are? I mean, come on now.
But, well, I had to say the year because in 2008, you know, that's when we experienced
Oh yes.
the recession.
Right.
So I got laid off from my wonderful magazine job, and there was no magazine jobs to be had because they
Mm-hmm.
closed down a lot of publications. They started going online and this, that, and the other. They started to come back now, and there's a lot of niche magazines. But at the time, the plan that I had laid out for myself, it was snatched and torn away.
Yeah, I
So
remember that.
that's what happened to my first master's degree, guys.
But
But
here's let me ask you this question.
mhm,
Yes, you got that first master degree, which was very different, the publication design, than the MFA that you now have.
mhm.
But let me know if this is accurate or not accurate. I'm not trying to ask a leading question. But I feel like just knowing you, you've taken a little bit of away from each one in order to help you in your business.
Oh, absolutely. Okay. Yes, to be fair to myself. Well, I don't feel like the first degree was useless. What I did, like I said, I did get to live my dream for 2 glorious years when I worked in a magazine in Baltimore. And that was helpful just to learn. It was a small publication, so I got to wear a lot of hats and I got to see it from the ground up. And also because I went to school, I was able to start teaching, and that has been a major influence in my career decisions so far. So I started, because of that degree, I was able to start teaching at a little college where Nache got me involved in.
Oh,
You might have to
please.
cut this part.
Hey, we we did our best. It was a small college, but we're laughing. Sorry, let's bring in the audience on this comedy. But LaKaye and I, we both taught at the college level. I guess it was technically a college level where we taught. let's see, a little bit of everything. I feel like graphic design, web design, and photography to students, but it was like a little tiny, tiny college. However, with that said, I have a lot of respect for those little tiny colleges because I realize that a lot of times that's all people can afford. And so I think for both LaKaye and I teaching there, even though sometimes it was very frustrating because anytime you're dealing with students, you have some that are all in and then others that is like pulling teeth for them to take action. But it was kind of like our way of giving back and really if only one of those students became like a successful designer, in my mind, I'm just like, okay, at least I was able to have an impact on that one student and they were able to live their dreams and make it after paying for this degree. Of course, I wanted the entire class to do that, but we definitely had some students who just didn't want to do the work. But that
I
started you off.
loved my students there.
Yeah.
I loved them a
Yeah.
lot. They were so needy for a teacher who cared for them.
Yeah.
Then
Yeah.
so
I agree.
it was
The
like
school was just a little,
it was like school boot camp. It was teaching boot camp.
yeah.
I remember after one particularly hard class, I cried. Oh, this student got me so riled up. But it prepared me and it really let me know that teaching was something I was going to keep in my career for a long time. And I'm still teaching, and that has was a result from doing that then.
See, aren't you glad I roped you into that? That.
You wrote me in. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. I was like, what in the world?
But I feel like that was like a little bit of personal development too, because we had to learn how to pull together lessons and capture
Hmm.
the attention of a classroom of people who were tired, because we were getting people who were coming in after work for the most part. And we had students who were motivated and then students who weren't motivated. So to me, that was a whole personal growth. Like, yes, we were getting paid for it, but I mean, I learned a lot. And I think for you, it made you realize, even if I don't necessarily want to continue teaching here, teaching is something that I definitely want to continue to do in the future. And I would say that would be the same for me too. It's just I'm just teaching more online now to older adults and not in the classroom.
Right.
Because, right, I'm like, it'll be
Right.
available online. Thank you.
Oh man, that just brought up a lot. No, but I loved it. And so when I shortly after that and after I started teaching after I got laid off from my other job. And then I ended up moving to Virginia and I was able to start teaching at a community college here, which was great. So you're right, every step kind of leads toward the next thing. So the difference between, for people who don't know, a master's and an MFA is a Master of Fine Arts is a terminal degree for artists.
Hmm.
So really, I feel that people should be calling me doctor. I should be Dr. LaKaye Mbah right now because I still had to do a thesis, a dissertation. I still had to defend my thesis to a group of people, and it's the same amount of years. So,
Yeah. I mean, I'll
uh,
call you Dr. Umba.
thanks.
I mean, I'm so used to calling you Professor Umba, but okay. But now, and what I want to say too about, we're going to go into some other ways of educating yourself, but for school is just one way to do it. Because even when I think about myself, when I'm not a school person, I feel like I never really did well in school. Like there are some people who love school, they're like serial students and they just eat it up. Me, I just knew that it was something you were supposed to do, and my mom pushed me into going to school initially. And I'm glad I did because I ended up going to Grambling State University and really solidified to me that I love design in art. I wish I would have gone. I'm glad I went to Grambling, but I do wish I would have gone to like more of a art school because I think I knew that from the get-go, but I think my mom, and mom, if you're listening, we've had this conversation, so I'm not mad at you. I initially wanted to go to art school, but my mom didn't think there was any money in the arts, right?
Ooh,
And
we can have
so
a
she,
whole conversation about that.
oh my goodness. And but I understood where she was coming from because a lot of parents think that. And so you want
Mm-hmm.
the best for your child, so it's no, you should go to a traditional university, which I did to just go and get a degree in design and art. But I'm glad I went there, made a lot of or developed a lot of relationships with people, and just so much happened there. I do believe I learned a lot. There are a lot of opportunities that wouldn't have happened if I wouldn't have gone to Grambling State University. So I am thankful that I went there. And I did leave there with a lot of debt, even though it wasn't a big school, which, if you guys listen to past episodes, I paid that debt off. But that's just something else to think about, too, is when you do decide to invest in a college, be it a community college, a regular college, or university, does it make sense for you, and can you afford it? And you have to really think through, do I have a plan of paying it off in the future so you're not in debt forever? So that's just something to think about. Like, college is just one option, but I feel like both LaKaye and I can also mention several career women and entrepreneurs who didn't go to college at all and still were able to achieve success. You just really have to think through if it's right for you and if it makes sense for you.
Let me just speak to that for a second because I did debate, especially as my student loan bills kept coming in, if I was going to start going back to school or not. And the reason I ultimately decided to is because I wanted to study under certain people, and
Mm.
that have been super influential in where I'm going with my development now. But I don't think college is for everybody, and I'm not going to impose that on my daughter. I just think that it has to be in line with what you want to do. And if it
Mm-hmm.
requires it, then you go and give it your all. So,
Mm-hmm.
in order for me to continue teaching, I don't know if the audience cares about this, but in order for me to continue teaching, I had to have a certain number of credits in whatever I wanted to teach. Because I love teaching so much, I decided I was going to go and just get the additional credits that I needed. But then I'm the type of person I need to complete something. So I went and got the whole degree instead of just
Mm-hmm.
the credits that I needed to teach photography and design.
No, I love it. And, you know, I'll also say one more thing about just going back or going to school, even in those early years, is what I do like about college is it teaches a young person discipline.
Hmm.
They're out on their own. Some people are learning to wash their clothes for the first time. Um, they have
Hmm.
to go to classes. It's like providing that structure. Whereas when you're a little bit older, like LaKaye and I, you know, a little bit
Why?
older,
Okay, sorry.
I feel like that decision to go back to school is really based on your goals and how you like to receive training, right?
Hmm.
Because some
Hmm.
people are like, please, I will Google and watch all the videos on this platform and this platform and that platform, while
Hmm.
others, you know, want to go back and have a community that they're connecting with every week, or a structure to what they're doing, or a teacher that they're talking to in person to let them know how to do that stained glass project. And so it's really, whatever stage in your life, it's really just thinking through how best you learn and what it is that you're trying to learn, and figuring out what makes the most sense for you.
That's exactly right. You stated that exactly the way I felt about it.
Yeah. It's so interesting because I was going to get into books, but I feel like people are going to be like, so what happened after she got her degree? Uh,
Which
so,
one? I have all the degrees.
well, okay, so after you got your last MFA, because
Hmm.
what I want people to get to is, I think it's very important that if you take any type of training, be it you're going back to school for a degree, you're taking leadership training, you're taking briefing training, whatever it is, you're going to learning something at a art school, whatever it is, that
Hmm.
once you learn how to do whatever you do, you apply it in some way. And sometimes it's not like one for one where it's okay, I took this briefing course and now I'm going to be like this world renowned speaker. Maybe it's I took this briefing or speaking course and now I'm more confident when I have to speak in front of a group. And so my question for you, Kay, is after this last degree,
Hmm.
which was mostly focused in the arts and just me knowing you personally, knowing how you're ramping up your photography business, how does that
Hmm.
translate? Because it's a little different, but have you found a way or are thinking about ways of incorporating what you've learned in this program into what you're doing next in your business as a photographer? And for those of you guys who don't know, Kay not only teaches at a university, but she also has her own photography business, just in case that wasn't clear.
So, okay. So I started off saying how I wanted to get rid of everything photography related.
Mm.
Um, and so I stopped doing photography when I went into school. And I need to answer this question in two parts. So, right now, I am starting a photography business. I'm restarting a photography business. And I feel myself incorporating a lot of the artistic processes into the actual shoots as opposed to just being standard studio sessions. But let me go back a step because I graduated in the height of the coronavirus. So I got my degree in May 2020 and I had, we had a virtual ceremony and everything was pretty much unsure. So in May, I wasn't really sure what I was going to do. The plans that I had laid out, I knew I was going to go back to teaching, but I was really looking at careers in the museums or doing a museum education or something along those lines or going to work at a university full time. That's where I was headed, so I thought, until the world shut down. And when I had to figure out what my next steps were going to be, because even within these schools, even at community colleges and universities worldwide, or maybe now just the United States is being affected primarily, but the enrollment is super low, which affects how many classes each teacher gets. And right now, I'm not employed full time by the school I'm working at. So I'm an adjunct teacher. When the enrollment is low, the classes get cut, and I'm just out of that additional money. So when I was trying to figure out what am I going to do in order to supplement it, I went back to doing something that I loved and I stopped for a long time, not because I didn't love it anymore, because I needed to change, but really that is something that I really enjoy doing. So I love
Mm.
photography. I love connecting with people, and I've been doing it all the while doing my art program. I've built photography into every project that I've done in some way, shape, or form. So it's something that I know how to do well and I know how to make a business out of it because of the length of time I was doing it. So the difference now between when I started photography before and then I stopped and now me coming out of this program is that a lot of the limitations that I put in front of myself previously are gone because in this particular program that I was in, it was a sink or swim situation and I had to determine what I was going to do. So, for instance, I'll put that in a more tangible state. Before, I'd always been shooting out of my house and wasn't sure what I was going to do and am I good enough, this, that, and the other. But now I went and I got a studio. I have a plan in place. I know how I'm going to market it. I know when and where because I had to put all those things together through the program that I was at with school. And I think that's the major benefit in addition to the artistic elements or the aesthetic that I'm putting into it now. I think
Mm.
just knowing that I can do it, not that I didn't know I couldn't do it before, but knowing how to put A, B, C, and D together. It's not, I don't mean a belief in myself, I mean the literal steps that I have to do. And that I can do in my sleep now, thanks to my professors.
Mm. Mm-hmm. I love it because I think people need to hear how you were able to take what you learned when you were getting that master's and translate it into your business, even though you didn't decide to become like a traditional artist. But the things that you learned can still be applied to being an entrepreneur.
Right. I learned how to pivot.
Yeah.
I learned that when a plan doesn't work out, then you got to go to plan B right away.
And you won't know it yet because you literally just graduated, but it'll be interesting. Some of, because of course, I've seen all the projects that you have done from school, how you end up maybe even incorporating some of that into props or
Hmm.
creating different things for your business too. We'll see how it kind of manifests through this year and next year, but I think everything that you learned in that program you can apply in some form or fashion to your photography business, even though it was basically concentrating on that.
Right. I'm not going to be able to help myself. I can't even look at my shoots the same way as I did before because I'm looking at it with it through a different lens.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully I can find an audience that can appreciate it. And I do expect that that's going to happen. Um,
Oh, for sure. I know it will
yeah.
happen. I'm putting it out there. And I'll also say, so LaKaye and I met when she got her first master's. So she's like super well educated, you know. Whereas me, I'm like, I am done and done. Like, not going back to school. I'm only taking online courses. But we met getting that master's in publication design. But that is where it's funny. It was called a master's in publication design, but I was able to learn how to properly code websites because before
Mm.
that program, I was self taught. And within that program, you know how they give you whatever it's called, like the different elections or whatever you could choose. I did a couple of web ones that were available, and it made me fall in love with web development even more. And I actually learned that I was doing everything the long way when it came to developing websites.
Hmm.
And it just made me have more of an appreciation and want to learn more about user interface design, which I would have never really explored if I wouldn't have taken that program. So that program actually led me to even doing some web projects on the side for a while. And now even when you see my websites, I really think that program allowed me to become like the web designer, so to speak, I am today because it taught me the fundamentals and then taught me to fish and find out more.
You bring up a good point because I didn't even consider when you asked me about the first degree that I learned how to do design. And
Mm,
so now I don't hire a designer. Eventually, I will hire a designer, but I don't hire a designer for my flyers or anything that I need because I know how to do it. And I think that was also a benefit. So even if I'm not, I tried to be a professional graphic designer. That lasted about 3 weeks
mm,
because I
mm.
don't enjoy doing that process for anybody else. But it was helpful for me to be able to do my own marketing materials. It was
Ah,
helpful
yes.
for me to be able to do my own marketing materials. But I do also want to say, even though we went to school and I'm obviously a school lover and you're not, I think that we have both really gone down the path of self development as far as we're avid readers. I listen to podcasts all the time.
Mhm.
What else do we do? I bought online courses. I don't think I'm
Mhm.
ever going to stop learning things, and I'm not. I will YouTube things if I need something really quick, but I like
Mhm.
to have someone give me an example of what it is that I'm doing. I like to read books and just hear other people's stories more so than find out exactly what their process is. So I feel like if you're looking on YouTube for things, you know exactly what you're looking for, but I might not. So I like to just hear about it through books and other kind of programs and courses.
No, I agree with you fully, and even though I don't even say it out loud that I won't get another degree because then I feel like I'm jinxing myself. I'll find a program like 3 years from now and be like, guess what? I'm gonna get my But I found, at least at this stage, pre-COVID, I do enjoy going to in-person classes. So even I'm in the DC area, there's a place called Torpedo Factory where you can learn how to do ceramics and watercolor and all the things. I do like in-person learning, and I'm an extrovert too, so I do being around other people. I just don't like, I don't, right now in my life, I don't think I like the commitment of a degree for 2 years. Give me like an 8 week course. And I do love online course places like Skillshare. You guys, I'm big into Skillshare, and I'm going to throw out my affiliate link, nachesnow.com/Skillshare, because I even have a course that I teach on there. So I do love that, and I think it's more because it's self-paced,
Hmm.
and I feel like if I was getting a degree again, there's like more pressure that I'm putting on myself to make sure I get a good grade and I'm like doing good and graduate on time. Whereas in this point in my life, I'm probably a little lazier where I'm like, oh, I'll do like a Skillshare course a week. I'm going to do it on my time. No one cares if I really post my project in there. Um,
Wait a minute. Did you? There is nothing about you. There's not a lazy bone in your body. So I just think it's just a matter of what you want to do, and that's exactly what I was about to ask you. If you preferred courses that were self-paced, or if they started at a certain time and you had to deliver at a certain time.
I think
But
because it's self, I think right now, just in my life, I love the self pace.
yeah, for me, I need accountability.
Mm, yeah.
I will buy, like, I have courses that I've purchased online that I haven't finished yet, even though they're wonderful. I have a lot of distractions. I have a little one here. I have just distractions.
Mm.
So for me, having some kind of deadline is helpful for me to get things done. And that's why I like talking to you, because because you
I'm
call
like,
me every month.
uh, right. So have you met your goals this month? And then LaKaye's
Right.
like, why are you texting me?
It's great to have an accountability partner as part of your personal development journey.
Yeah. And just to wrap up here, I think it's interesting because, yeah, as we've been talking, I was like, even though we started out talking about personal development, I think if people are listening to this, it will help them more figure out what kind of learner they are and
Mm.
if college is for them or not. And if not, maybe some alternatives to take. And if so, like how college could apply to their business. But I just want to make sure that we touch on some of the other things. So we've talked about going back to college or going to college. We've talked about
Hmm.
just taking general classes, and Skillshare is one of my favorite ones because, of course, I love taking other self development courses. I take that back. Skillshare does have like basic self development where you can learn how to be a speaker and so forth. But I just love it for a lot of their hand lettering and arts.
Hmm.
But there's other programs out there too that are more focused towards you being more productive or you becoming a leader and so forth. So, are there any online class platforms that you gravitate to?
I am a big Creative Live fan. So I've watched Creative Live for years. So you can watch their programs for free. They started off doing a lot of photography, but now they have everything from sewing to hand lettering to cooking classes to personal development. In addition, I also have purchased some individual courses from Pat Flynn, who does Smart Passive Income, and I've purchased business courses from Marie Forleo. And most of the things I tend to purchase will be from, or purchase or support, if I'm just watching it or just following it online, tend to be business based, creative business based.
Yeah, and I'll also mention, so we've talked about universities, we've talked about online platforms like Skillshare, excuse me, and Creative Live. We've talked about individual courses like Marie Forleo and Pat Flynn. I also mentioned torpedo factories. So those are local courses. There's also some others, like even smaller places in the area where I could take courses. And then these might not necessarily be courses per se, but I have been part of, in the years past, two other kind of masterminds. Like one was with
Mm.
Maya Gotti, and that's actually what inspired me and to help me write the Life Cleanse Journal. And then when I first started out, I took also like a mastermind ish kind of thing from Amanda Miller. John, Little John. Sorry, Amanda, I messed up your name. But all the links to everything we mentioned will be in the show notes. But I just wanted to just go through that list because depending on what kind of learner you are and depending on what you're trying to learn, there are so many different ways where you can make connections and figure out how to get what you need. But I think in that choice, you also need to figure out, do you need someone, like LaKaye said, to hold you accountable? Because when I was in the group with Amanda and Maya, I had to meet with them weekly and you had to talk about what you did. So
Mm-hmm.
it holds you accountable. Where I'm assuming, like the Marie Forleo and the Pat Flynn, that's self paced. They're not there like, hey, LaKaye, what are you doing?
Right. Which
Yeah.
is why I haven't finished either. But I will.
But I feel like a trick to that though is if you get a friend to invest with you on those
Mm.
courses and you all decide to check in. Let's say hypothetically, if I had took the course with Kay, I would have harassed Kay on a weekly basis
Yes.
to nauseum, and she would have finished the course. So no, that is also another little trick. Okay,
Can I also put, wait a minute, can I put a plug in for community colleges too? Because I
for
work at a
sure.
community college and I
Oh
think
yeah, I did
that's,
get first. Sorry. Yes. I said I think I told them that you worked at a university.
oh,
What?
well, I mean, I will eventually.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
a community college is kind of like a bridge in between. So you don't have to go and get a degree. You can go for personal satisfaction. But all of the teachers who teach at a community college have the same degrees that people teach at a 4-year university.
For sure.
So your education isn't going to be diminished in any way. And it might be a way to get your feet wet in any kind of activity you want to pursue. And the school that I work at has great art classes. So I don't know that we have a lot of independent art places like the Torpedo Factory. We don't have that here. But if anybody listening wants to do like a pottery class or photography class or anything, you can go to check out your community college and see if they have something available. Just take one and
Hmm.
that can help.
I love that because it even goes back to the school we did not name, but we both taught at.
Right.
It was super duper tiny, but people got what they needed, and those that took action. Because people who know me know that I am hardcore. If you're gonna be lazy, I have no sympathy for you if you do not grow as a person and achieve success because you took no action to do it. But people who worked hard, and even when things didn't go right, they had that determination to continue to do what they needed to do. They achieve success regardless of where they go for their education. Because I'll tell you, my friends, people who've gone to Harvard, not all of them are successful either. You're probably making more money than some of them. So it's really about what you do with the education you receive. Okay, so real quick, two rapid fire. Favorite podcast?
Oh, Studio 78.
Yeah. Do you have any other podcasts you love?
Okay. I listen to Smart Passive Income a lot. And also I listen to, get the name of it. I think it's called Portrait Masters. That's another, I didn't mention that before, but that's another online source that I use a lot. And they have a good podcast for photographers. So I think
Mm.
it's called Portrait Masters. I think you can search it and you'll find it.
Yeah, and I would recommend. I started out with Smart Passive Income. Love him. I also love Side Hustle Pro. I actually was in. I don't know if I mentioned I was in her program too, Nikayla's. So there's been three programs that I've actually Hers is more coaching, but and she's great too. So Side Hustle Pro podcast, the Get Paid podcast is amazing. The Jenna Rainey Show, Pimp Your Brilliance podcast. I love How I Built This too. Every time I
Oh
hear,
yes,
oh my
yes, I forgot
goodness,
about that one.
check out Support is Sexy podcast. Yeah, I'll leave it at that. And it's a mix of podcasts because I think it's important for us to also support minority podcasts. So like the Pimp Your Brilliance and Side Hustle Pro are both run by Black women. And I haven't listened to her podcast yet, but I love following her online. I think I talked to you about her, the Shine Online podcast with
Mm.
Natasha from Soul Studio. So her podcast is one. So those are all podcasts that I love. But of course, I want you guys to also subscribe to Studio 78. Thank you very much. Do it now. Thanks.
And you know what else I started listening to? Yeah, subscribe to Studio 78. She has the best guests, best show ever. But what I also started listening to, I know I mentioned I do a lot of business related things, but since COVID started, I
Mm.
started listening to Therapy for Black Girls.
Oh, I have heard of that. Yes.
Hmm. That's a good podcast to listen to.
You know what I started listening to a lot, which is so random because normally I only listen to business podcasts? A Beautiful Mess.
Ooh.
Their podcast is so good, start from the beginning, because they tell you how they have been able to like purchase property and things like that. But then also their episodes are about home decor. So it's a little bit of business with home decor
Mm.
and their sisters. So there's just like a good rapport there. Yeah, they're great.
I'll check that out.
And the last one that I'll recommend is The Striving Artist, and that is by Lauren Hom. She was on episode 83 of the Studio 78 podcast, and her and another artist have all kind of business goodies to share with their audience. So definitely check that out. Okay, last rapid fire question. What is your favorite book or books?
The one that comes to mind is The Year of Yes. I know I have lots of books that I listen to because I do mostly audiobooks right now. But that's the one that comes to mind because it wasn't necessarily about business, but it was about making change starting right away, starting
Mm.
today, and how spending time with your family or making sure you're present with your kids is super important to your whole body, not just your business. It's important to everything holistically.
Mm.
So that's the one that just came to mind, I think, because we talked about it earlier, but I would have to go with that.
For sure. And for me, I would say go over to my blog and check out my article on must read business, self help, feminist, and historical books by Black women authors. There you can find a range of books from Slay in Your Lane, The Black Girl Bible, Well Read Black Girl, Finding Our Stories, Discovering Ourselves, 90 Days to CEO, A Guide to Avoid Business Pitfalls and Unlocking the Secrets of Entrepreneurship. So lots of goodness. Just head on over to nachesnow.com/116 and I have the link to that list along with everything that LaKaye and I have mentioned. Other books that you should definitely check out. Big Magic, of course. I love that also. Work Party by Jacqueline Johnson. Find Your Extraordinary by Jessica Harin. Profit First by Mike Michalowicz. The 10X Rule by Grant Cardone. And last but not least, I loved Atomic Habits by James Clear. In short, what I want you guys to do is continue to make time for you. I think at the beginning of pandemic, it forced all of us to slow down. And at that time, we had a chance to reevaluate what was important to us. And for some of us, we were also able to make time for some of the things that we love, or just make time to educate ourselves on things that we never ever gave space and time for before. But now that we're 8 months into the pandemic and everybody is back at work and things aren't normal, but sort of getting back to normal, we're losing that. And I want you to make sure, if it's an hour a week, even, that you are making time to develop yourself, that personal development. And that could be taking a Skillshare course or enrolling in a program at a college or university. And remember what we learned at the beginning of the pandemic about the importance of taking time for ourselves. With that said, LaKaye, did you have anything else?
I just wanted to say again how much I really enjoy your podcast. It's not just because we're friends, but the guests that you bring on, I end up following each and every one of them for the most part. And I just learn something new at each time. So when we're talking about personal development, I really do think your podcast goes above and beyond to help people in the creative industry learn how to start their businesses or just improve. So I'm just putting in another vote for you all, sharing this episode, sharing all of her episodes, rating 5 everywhere, and just listen in. It's good stuff.
Look, I don't even have to do my outro. And we're out, people. Until next week, stay strong this week, my friends. All right, take care.